This episode changes everything because our main character stops playing safe and starts playing dirty. His uncle must win this election, or his entire media empire dream dies before it even begins. He uses everything: fake narratives, backdoor deals, public manipulation, strategic leaks. He turns the whole campaign into a battlefield. And just when victory feels guaranteed, when the votes look locked, a new enemy steps in, someone even he didn't predict. And now the real war begins. Now back at the mansion, the chairman looks annoyed. Why did you personally go to such a risky place? Doojan smiles and says it wasn't dangerous. The chairman admits he wanted to call and check on him but didn't want to interfere. Doojan jokes he was just sightseeing. The chairman doesn't believe that for a second. Then he says he called him today for another reason. A knock on the door. Doojan's aunt and her husband enter. The chairman asks everyone to sit. He asks his son-in-law how the mayoral nomination is going. Everything's smooth. Then the chairman says something that changes the mood. The ruling party nominated Zhang Yel as a candidate for sole mayor. Doojan remembers that name from his past life. A serious opponent. His aunt looks shocked, her husband looks tense. Then the chairman smiles slightly and says it seems like Doojan wasted his money. Doojan asks how he knows. It hasn't even hit the news. The chairman says Zhang Yel called him this morning for advice. He took that position thanks to the chairman's financial backing. Of course, he'd ask permission before running against the chairman's son-in-law. The grandfather's smile looks familiar. Strategic, calculated. His aunt panics and asks her father to intervene. Just one phone call could remove the obstacle. The chairman explodes. If I remove this opponent, what happens when a stronger one appears? Will you ask me to eliminate him too? He makes it clear. If you expect this road to be covered in flowers and butterflies, quit politics now. Doojan sits silently, realizing something. Those words weren't just for his uncle. They were for him too. Being a political puppet isn't easy. The chairman points at his son-in-law. Stop whining. Go negotiate. This election cannot be lost. The sole mayor seat is the most important municipal position. They bow and leave. Doojan watches his aunt and uncle leave. Then he looks back at his grandfather. The chairman says something blunt. He and his wife raised their children wrong. The moment things get difficult, they complain instead of overcoming it. Then he looks directly at Doojan and asks, "Do you know what kind of person Call is?" Doojan calmly says it's the first time he's heard the name. In his past life, he saw it in headlines many times, but never this close. The chairman explains, Call works in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, former ambassador to the United States, held multiple high-level government posts. He's older, but that just means experience. Very few visible weaknesses. Doojan squints. So can we find flaws in my uncle? The chairman sighs irritably. Your uncle has no obvious flaws. Nobody in their right mind would try to bribe someone whose father-in-law leads the country's most powerful corporation and whose wife runs a department store division. Then he adds something dangerous. That exact family connection can be used against him. Public anger is already high after the IMF crisis. Ordinary people blame businessmen. A candidate tied to a conglomerate family won't look clean. Doojan frowns. In his previous life, he never paid enough attention to politics. He doesn't even remember who won that election or by how much. He says it directly. It doesn't look like you plan to help Uncle. The chairman asks why he would. He has nothing to lose. Either candidate wins, they can't refuse him. He wins no matter what. Unlike you, he says with a small smile. Doojan narrows his eyes. As expected, Grandpa isn't invested emotionally. He's enjoying the chessboard. Then the chairman adds pressure. Without the new media company project, Doo Construction will be in serious deficit. If your uncle loses, the former executives I sent there might barely survive. Dujun laughs lightly fake. He understands this is a test. If he reacts emotionally like his aunt and uncle, he loses. So he responds calmly, "No one is perfect. If we dig hard enough, we'll find something on call. The war isn't over. An uncle being part of a conglomerate family can be turned into strength too." The chairman removes his hand from his face and studies him carefully. Dujan lays it out clearly. Uncle doesn't need money. That means he won't steal public funds. He can use the chairman's name strategically. Promise development projects, residential complexes backed by Sang, infrastructure support. Just promises. Most voters know not every promise gets fulfilled, but they still vote for hope. The chairman grins. Good arguments, but not enough yet. Dujan says they need to strengthen the campaign, and he wants to speak to the second candidate. The chairman's eyes widen. You already invested heavily in your uncle. If you switch sides now, you lose 40 billion. Dujan smiles. 40 billion isn't the point. If the right project moves, that money multiplies 10 times, 100 times. Lose 40, gain 400. Now the chairman watches him more seriously. He reminds him, Uncle is already spreading news about the new copper project. If Call wins, he won't implement the loser's plans. That's exactly why I need to meet him. Now we shift. An envelope hits the table. Military exemption documents. Call was exempted, his brother too, his sons too. Sean chuckles, upper caste privileges. Dujan smiles slightly. That's leverage. Belonging to a powerful family cuts both ways. Election season doesn't start on paper, it starts quietly. Now the meeting. Assistant Kim walks in Call's chief of staff. If Call wins, this man becomes deputy mayor for political affairs. The meeting was arranged through the chairman. Dujan hands over his card, introduces himself calmly. Kim says he only agreed because someone powerful requested it. He didn't expect to meet someone from the company that absorbed Agi Corporation. Dujan thanks him for his time, keeps it respectful. Kim says he's not hungry, let's get to the point. He refuses any requests involving direct contact with Call. Dujan smiles politely. He says clearly, I don't want to meet Call. I want to meet you. Kim raises an eyebrow. Dujan explains calmly. I have no complaints about the candidate. My interest is in the chief of staff. Kim leans back, arms folded. The right hand never becomes the head. The second man remains second. Over time, the right hand sinks lower. Eventually, it gets cut off. That's how power works. Kim's jaw tightens. Dujan asks where those phrases even come from. Second man, right hand. They exist so the masses don't elevate them. So when they're discarded, no one questions it. Silence fills the table. Dujan continues. Second men are praised while useful, then sacrificed when necessary. Kim's fist clenches. Dujan leans forward slightly. The candidate's political life is in your hands. Your actions decide whether it's filled with glory or regret. Kim mutters that Dujan is young but cunning. Then he demands clarity. Enough riddles, what do you want? Dujan smiles calmly. I want to buy the rest of your life. Kim's eyes widen. And just like that, the real negotiation begins. Dujan laid it out calmly. Kim was the right hand of a man who might become mayor of Seoul, but even if that happened, the road from mayor to the Blue House was almost impossible, and becoming mayor wasn't even guaranteed yet. So realistically, what was he holding on to? Dujan raised his eyebrows slightly and asked why cling to something so uncertain when he could sell his own future at an extremely high price instead. Kim's fist tightened immediately. What are you even saying? His voice wasn't loud, but the tension was obvious. Dujan didn't flinch. He said he would handle everything. He would take responsibility for all the fallout. Kim wouldn't have to worry about logistics, consequences, or exposure. All he had to do was say one word, one small move at the right moment. Kim's jaw hardened. So you're asking me to abandon candidate call? Dujan answered without hesitation. Yes, but if Call truly sees you as his right hand, then one mistake shouldn't destroy your position. Isn't this the perfect opportunity to test whether you're truly indispensable or just a disposable assistant? The room went quiet. Dujan could almost see it, the doubt settling in. Then he said the number. 20 billion won. Just one word that shifts momentum. One controlled misstep that weakens the campaign at the right time. In return, 20 billion. Kim froze. Dujan continued in a completely businesslike tone. The money would be cleaned properly and transferred wherever he wanted. Switzerland, the Virgin Islands, anywhere. If he preferred status over hiding, they could appoint him as director of an overseas fantasy branch. He could choose the country himself, live comfortably. No political stress, no constant pressure, just security. Kim's eyes widened. Sweat formed at his temples. Dujan remembered something his grandfather once told him, that the fastest way to connect with powerful people was through family subsidies. A few 100 million here and there could open doors, but 20 billion, that wasn't influence money. That was life-changing money. That was the price of loyalty breaking. Dujan calmly took a sip of his drink and added that he would give him until tomorrow at this time. If he refused, someone else would take the offer. There is always someone willing to reveal a weakness when the price is right. In a country where people dig gold out of closets to survive financial crises, don't underestimate how easily souls sell for 20 billion. That night back at the mansion, the chairman asked how it went. Did he take the bait? Dujan smiled faintly. I didn't offer sponsorship. I offered betrayal. The chairman's eyebrows lifted. Dujan explained that Call belonged to his grandfather's generation. Even if Call accepted help, he wouldn't be grateful. He would think he was granting favors by approving projects like Media City. The result might be the same, but the power dynamic would be wrong. With someone like Kim, though, the equation changes. A right hand understands debt. He understands who elevated him. The chairman laughed loudly and accused him of discriminating against the older generation. But then he said something unexpected. I thought you'd chase Call directly. I didn't expect you to surpass me. Dujan clenched his fist quietly. That acknowledgement mattered. Meanwhile, Kim sat alone in his campaign office replaying everything. 20 billion. A branch anywhere in the world. Freedom. Then Call walked in, frustrated and tense, complaining about party leaders demanding campaign funds. Kim watched closely. This was a moment that revealed character. He said calmly that he needed to step away for a week due to family matters. Call exploded. Do you understand how important this timing is? He shouted about sacrifices, about living in hotels, about not seeing his own children. Kim lowered his head and listened. Then Call asked about approval ratings. Kim answered professionally, You're ahead. The gap will widen. Next week should look even better. Call smiled, praised him briefly and left. He never once asked what was wrong. Never asked why his chief of staff suddenly needed a week away during the most critical stage of the campaign. Kim stood alone in the office, staring at the poster on the wall. For more than 10 years, he had managed everything. Protected Call's image, absorbed pressure, solved crises. And in the one moment where he signaled vulnerability, there was nothing. No concern, no curiosity, just orders. A week later, Call stood outside late at night, crushing a pack of cigarettes in his hand, veins visible with stress. The campaign was tightening. Pressure was mounting. At another table, Dujan and Kim met again. Kim tried to provoke him. Is this about making your son-in-law mayor? Dujan answered calmly. This has nothing to do with family, it's business. Kim slammed his fist on the table. I'm risking becoming a traitor, and you still call me an outsider. Dujan's expression didn't change. Until call falls, you live on the border. Once he loses, you receive the money and become our man. Kim tried to redefine betrayal. A traitor is someone who burns the bridge behind him. Dujan responded evenly. Breaking trust between friends is betrayal. Ending a business relationship with an employer is not betrayal, it's contract termination. Kim froze. Dujan poured another drink and said this isn't feudal loyalty. Loyalty today only survives where there is mutual respect. If a boss treats a subordinate like a tool, what loyalty are we even talking about? Kim's face tightened. He told him to stop. And now the decision wasn't just about 20 billion. It was about whether he wanted to remain someone's right hand forever, or finally become his own man. Kim looked down and admitted something honestly for the first time. Maybe he was just hungry for money. Dujan closed his eyes for a second and replied calmly that a lot of people are hungry for money, but most of them are losers because they never manage to earn enough of it. Kim frowned and asked what made him different. Was it simply because he was being offered a bigger number? And Dujan answered without hesitation. The difference is that you would finally have the chance to challenge your own dream, not as someone else's assistant, not as a right hand, but as a member of the National Assembly. Kim's head lifted sharply when he heard that. Dujan leaned forward slightly and said fantasy would back him. There were 2 years until the 16th general election. Ruling party or opposition, proportional system or district seat, it didn't matter. They had time, and they had money. Kim stared at the table in silence. Dujan studied him carefully as Kim muttered that if this were real, then the money should be moved quickly. Switzerland, somewhere safe. Journalists prepared 2 days before the election. A final blow. Dujan answered evenly that he didn't need to worry about the money. Trust mattered to him. He wouldn't stab him in the back. Now we shift. 10 days until the election. The approval rating gap keeps widening. Soyeon looks tense and says they need something big to reverse the trend. Sean frowns and tells her there are still 10 full days left. Why are you surrendering already? An older man in the room adds calmly that Ain and even Dia construction were funded by American investors. Nobody really knows what Dujan is capable of. Either campaign properly or accept defeat. Later that night, another table, another room. An envelope is pushed forward. Pocket money, someone says with a smirk. Reporter Park smiles. 6 men sit together, food and drinks spread across the table. The man in the green tie asks the reporters to stop pushing narratives that Dia Construction's future is doomed. Everyone has to protect their position. Someone jokes about rat poison. Then loud shouting from the next room. After the vote, our candidate becomes mayor of Seoul. The men freeze. That voice sounds familiar. Kim, the chief of staff. One of them quietly pulls out a small recording device. In the next room, Kim is drunk and loud. Someone jokes that the chief of staff should inherit the position and become the next mayor himself. Kim slams the table. Jonjol made me mayor. What nonsense is that? It will be his turn to send me to UO. The room goes silent. Then someone mentions military exemption. Kim laughs bitterly. Do you really think a high-ranking official like Jonjol would send his child to the army? Only people like us go there. Another man casually admits how easy it is to create false medical certificates. One son born in the United States, dual citizenship, no service required. Then the bomb drops. The third son who actually served. That's not his real son. Silence. Illegitimate child. An affair during his time abroad. The child was later added to the family registry and sent to the army to clean up appearances. The men in the next room stop breathing. Sean raises his hand and tells the reporters to calm down. If this explodes tomorrow morning, everything flips overnight. Parents who sent their sons to the army will react. Women hearing about an illegitimate child will react. This isn't just gossip, it's cultural suicide. Park says voters deserve the truth. Sean looks at them carefully and asks a sharper question. Are you releasing this because of ethics, or because of the bonus you'll receive if candidate Choi wins instead? The room tightens. Sean extends his hand and says the Sang group won't ignore loyalty. The first paper to publish will receive strong advertising support, possibly even a year-long contract. No one speaks. They understand the price. One by one they leave. The next morning, every headline screams the same thing. Military exemption. Illegitimate child. Approval ratings drop 10% overnight. Back at campaign headquarters, chaos. Janjul storms into the room, demanding to know who leaked it. Kim points at a colleague, slaps him, kicks another, fury everywhere. Then suddenly, Kim collapses to his knees. He bows deeply and begs for forgiveness, says he drank too much. It was his fault. Janjul stands there in stunned silence. Kim's body trembles. He keeps his head down. And inside his mind, something shifts. He smiles faintly to himself. He's not a traitor. He just made a drunken mistake. Which means the real traitor is still standing safely against the wall. Candidate number 2 is for you. People in green caps and hoodies shouted in unison. This is a choice for Seoul. At the microphone, a man declared loudly that he was the only candidate fit for the country. Vote for safety. Vote for the future of Seoul. Inside a moving car, Chairman Yanchul watched it all through the window. In his mind, he wasn't looking at campaign slogans. He was thinking about his grandson, about what kind of move Doojan had made to lure Call's right hand away. He had seen countless men dedicate their lives to politics. The ones with real ambition took just enough money to gain power. The scum used power to gain money. Call's chief of staff, he wasn't scum. He had ambition. Money alone wouldn't control Call himself, but the right hand, that was different. We're here, the driver said. Yanchul folded his arms and stepped out. Later that day in the office, Director Oh and Doojan looked up in surprise when the chairman entered with a calm smile. Tea was served. 3 cups sat on the table. I saw the news, Yanchul said. In the end, it happened exactly as you predicted. Then he looked at Doojan. How did you lure Call's right hand? Doojan smiled lightly. Kim Gwang-hak isn't someone who wants to remain a right hand forever. His ambition is bigger than that. I simply created the opportunity. Director Oh nervously mentioned polling forecasts. Yanchul responded confidently, 7%. Doojan's survey showed 10. Either way, they were winning. There are only a few hours left, Yanchul said calmly. Nothing will change. Then he shifted tone. Your project has passed the 5th stage. Doojan's smile faded. 5th, he thought they were already past 7. Yanchul laughed softly. Do you think the one who sets the table is the only one who eats? When the food is ready, many will come with their spoons, and when they can't get a plate, they'll try to flip the table. The warning was clear. Then came the real move. What if I handle the Media City construction? Yanchul asked. The room froze. Sang Construction would sign the contract with the Seoul government. Dia Construction would play a role, of course. Cooperation. Director Oh looked like someone had punched him. Doojan stared at his grandfather. Are you serious? I never joke about business, Yanchul replied. Construction companies were collapsing everywhere. Those who survived wouldn't miss this chance. Why not treat this as a national-level project? Could the two of them really handle it alone? Yes, Yanchul said firmly, you can't. Doojan swallowed his disappointment but kept his voice steady. We don't mind help, but do you need to take everything? Is that help? Yanchul shot back. If I don't step forward, you'll be torn apart. You're not even taking 20%. The cartel will abandon your plan and build a new one without you. Director O protested that most of the management team already came from Sang. Wasn't that cooperation enough? Yanchel exploded. If you can't manage without me, then I'm the real owner. Silence filled the office. Dujun's heart pounded. Was this greed, a test, or both? He steadied himself. The number of companies dependent on Sang keeps increasing, he said quietly. People line up at your door, but today you came here personally. Yanchel stiffened. You have nowhere to rush, Dujun continued calmly. As soon as my uncle takes office, we will move forward. We are the only company ready. He locked eyes with his grandfather. We won't let others put their spoons into our bowl. A faint smile touched Yanchel's face, then it vanished. You came because you know this is your only chance, Dujun added. You understand that too. The tension thickened. After a long pause, Dujun spoke again. Your help would be useful, but I cannot give you everything. We lead. Sang becomes our reliable partner. That's the maximum. The air turned cold. If you try to swallow something too big, you'll tear your mouth, Yanchel warned. You're overestimating yourself. A drop of sweat rolled down Dujun's cheek. Then he smiled faintly. Children don't grow up without getting hurt. Rage flashed in Yanchel's eyes. Are you making me your enemy? Enemy? Dujun replied calmly. No, I still believe there's no better partner than Sang. Yanchel slammed the armrest. If you go against me, we are enemies. He stood, told them to think carefully, and left. After he walked out, the realization hit Dujun. The chairman had come not to steal. He had come to measure. In the car, Yanchel sat silently, arms folded, staring out the window. The time has come. Later, the news confirmed it. Changwoo had won, mayor of Seoul. On the phone, Dujun congratulated him. Changwoo promised he would never forget the support. Dujun smirked lightly. It's enough that I can call you mayor. He hung up. And 30 minutes later, Dujun realized something the moment the exit polls were announced. His uncle called him almost immediately to say thank you. That meant one thing, he still had a conscience. Sean, sitting on the sofa, didn't share the satisfaction. He said bluntly that he wasn't happy about the victory at all. He asked Dujun what he planned to do now. Follow the chairman's words, or push forward anyway. Dujun answered calmly that he would try to smooth things over first. If that didn't work, he would move forward regardless. Sean crossed his legs and said the management team had already panicked when he mentioned the chairman's move. They tucked their tails instantly. They're all grandpa's arms and legs, Dujun replied. Sean exhaled sharply. He said he trusted Chairman Yanchel, and now it felt like Dia Construction was being betrayed. After a short silence, Dujun admitted that at the time bringing in Sang's people had been the best option. Without them, they never would have regained control, recovered hidden funds, or stabilized the company. Regretting it now changed nothing. In the worst case, Dujun said with a faint smirk, we give up Media City and merge into Sayang. Call it tuition. Sean shot back that he was glad Dujun learned something, but it still felt like a knife in the back. Dujun laughed lightly and said maybe Sean learned not to trust anyone completely. Despite everything, though, Dujun still trusted his grandfather. That was the part he couldn't fully explain, even to himself. That night he went to see him. The chairman immediately asked whether he had spoken to his uncle. Dujun said yes. He called about 30 minutes after the results were clear. Yanchel laughed. He called me within a minute, said it was all thanks to me. Dujun understood the implication. His uncle wasn't thanking him for support. He was thanking the chairman for not interfering. Removing him from the race would have been effortless. He's afraid of you, Dujun said honestly. Smart man, Yanchel replied. Then came the real question. Will you do as I said? Dujan didn't answer directly. Instead, he asked whether his grandfather truly had his eye on the Media City project, or whether there was another meaning behind it. There is no other meaning, Yanchel said seriously. Sang's cash flow had dried up after the IMF crisis. He needed to grab what he could. Dujan looked stunned. So you're going to steal a bowl of rice from your beloved grandson? Yanchel smiled coldly. And you? Didn't you play with exchange rates to swallow a car company? Was that mercy? That was robbery in broad daylight. Dujan felt the hit land. His grandfather hadn't forgotten. Yes, Yanchel said firmly. You damaged the controlling stake. I need to recover it. Then he softened slightly. Don't be offended. When Sayang owns the business, I'll take care of you too. That didn't comfort Dujan at all. What does that mean exactly? He asked. Yanchel answered clearly. Dia construction would take at least 30% of the total construction workload, no less. The room went silent. 30% wasn't small, but it wasn't control. Dujan instantly understood something else. The management team had been reporting upward. That percentage was too calculated to be random. He felt betrayed, but he didn't show it. After a moment he asked, will you give more? Don't be greedy, Yanchel said. 30% is enough. Dujan clenched his fists under the table. If he retreated now, everything would collapse. The goal wasn't just profit, it was positioning. He exhaled slowly. I'm sorry. Before he could continue, Yanchel's aura hardened. Think carefully before you speak. But Dujan had already thought about it. I've been thinking since yesterday. Nothing changed. I can't give this up. Yanchel stared at him in disbelief. You won't regret it. I won't, Dujan said calmly. Even if I don't earn a single one from Media City, I won't blame you. I came this far because of you. That answer hit differently. The chairman's anger eased slightly. Is that so? Dujan smiled faintly. But if you take everything, I won't call you for a few days. Yanchel raised a brow. That's your threat. Maybe a week, Dujan said as he stood. For a moment the old man didn't respond. Then he smiled, genuinely satisfied. As Dujan reached the door, Yanchel called him back and told him to come tomorrow morning. Get some fresh air before fighting. Dujan looked at him without emotion. He understood now. This wasn't theft. It was a succession war rehearsal. Elsewhere in another office, Yangi rubbed the bridge of his nose and said he currently held the largest share percentage among the children. 2 department heads confirmed it. He asked whether investor shares combined could challenge their father. They admitted it would be difficult. Without inheriting the chairman's shares, management rights were impossible. Then Yangi asked quietly what would happen if their father died. The room froze. He raised his hand calmly and said they needed to consider age. It wouldn't shock anyone if he passed tomorrow. Were there preparations? A will? They explained that 23% would go to the chairman's wife, around 15% to the children. As for a will, none of the group lawyers had seen one, though the chairman's personal lawyer might have it. And that answer did comfort Yangi at all. Yangi frowned, asking why they assumed there was no separate will. The department head lowered his voice and said that considering the total group shares, the inheritance tax alone would be catastrophic. And until now, the chairman had structured everything to minimize that burden, so even if a will exists, it would likely cover only personal assets like land houses or collectibles, not company shares, because transferring equity directly would trigger massive taxation. And that explanation made Yangi's face darken, as he imagined hundreds of billions, even trillions, evaporating in tax payments, since most tycoons transfer management rights as gifts during their lifetime. To avoid that scenario, and his father was not the kind of man who would willingly allow such losses to be written off in good faith. Yangi relaxed slightly and asked if there was no separate will, and all inheritance was distributed equally. Then, what would happen to management control? and the answer came carefully that it would become complicated, because depending on alignment, the position of chairman could change hands entirely. And Yangi folded his arms, asking what if his mother supported him, and the department head replied calculations would be necessary. But if he secured both the chairman's wife and Director Sangi, then structurally, there would be no obstacle to claiming the chairmanship. That made Yangi smile, faintly adjusting his glasses, and saying that sounded promising, though ideally succession rights should be clarified before his father died. And then one of the men suddenly remembered another variable, explaining that 17.7% of the shares had already been transferred during the Sayang Motors restructuring, and that fantasy director Sean had connections with director Jin. And since Jin preferred movies over family conflict, he likely would not intervene. And Yangi dismissed them after absorbing everything. Once alone, he leaned back, covering his eyes, thinking about the youngest sibling, the one he barely considered, until now an irritation crept in because unpredictability ruined succession math. He walked to the window, watching the sunset, and lit a cigarette, wondering how long his father realistically had left, because no one leaves the world with their assets, so why allow a structure that would cause chaos after death? And even as he thought that, he realized his greater concern was not the youngest, but his reckless older brother, who could sabotage everything from behind. Dawn approached, and a car sped down the western highway, while Yahello looked out the window, and Jun sat beside him, trying to calculate their destination, until his grandfather asked casually whether curiosity was killing him, and Jun admitted honestly that he was going crazy with it, but did not dare ask earlier because of how serious he looked. And Yahello smiled faintly, announcing they were heading to the place where Sayang's history began. Gunson. The name alone triggered memories for Jun, because, in his previous life, he had studied every archived interview and article about the group's origin, and he remembered the photograph of the old Joseon rice warehouse abandoned by the Japanese after liberation, and how that warehouse became the seed of the empire. And he turned to his grandfather, asking if it was still standing, which surprised Yahello, who asked how he knew, and Jun smoothly explained that every employee of the group knows the story, so how could the grandson not? Yahello laughed approvingly, saying most of his 10 grandchildren only know how to spend money, while Jun alone understands how it was earned. And then his tone shifted, explaining that during the war the warehouse was used by American soldiers and later returned. And eventually, he donated it to the state as a historical museum, so he could preserve its symbolic value without spending his own funds. And when Jun jokingly asked if that meant it was essentially his museum, the old man laughed, saying he would never publicly record how he stole rice. That bluntness stunned Jun, but Yahello continued calmly, saying small thefts are punished, but large ones rarely are. And when Jun guessed it was because he was powerful, the old man corrected him, saying it was because truly large thieves sit in power, and if you share part of the stolen money with them, they close their eyes. Jun realized he was listening to the blueprint of business-government collusion, and asked directly whether he shared the profits back then. And Yahello did not deny it, explaining that he built his first factory with what remained and expanded, relentlessly reinvesting everything, until Sayang became untouchable. And then his expression hardened, saying that now he must protect himself from thieves, which made the irony unavoidable. Jun asked quietly whether he had once betrayed his own brother to protect the company, and this time there was no immediate answer until Yahello exhaled, admitting he did it to survive, because when the military regime rose they targeted businessmen, and his brother was officially the factory director, yet lacked management ability. So if authorities seized control, the company would fall into the wrong hands, and therefore he chose cruelty and sacrificed his brother. That admission hit differently, and Jun couldn't ignore the internal question, did he betray to survive or to own everything? And before he could fully process it, Yahello turned and asked him directly if he would be prepared to sell his own family to protect what he built. And the car filled with silence as Jun struggled between honesty and strategic answer. He inhaled, preparing to respond. And then everything fractured. Metal screamed. Light shattered. The world spun violently. A crash happened. To know whether they survive or not, subscribe and press that bell icon to know what happens next.